What is it? Hello and welcome to this edition of the DMZ America podcast. It is Thursday, June 6th. I had to look that up. 2024. I knew what year it was. That's good.
It's the 80th
Ted,
anniversary of D-Day. How could you have
it,
forgotten?
it is. It is. I'm so sorry. It's also episode 150 of the DMZ America podcast.
Whoa. Woo, look at
Yeah.
us.
Look at us. Look at the staying power.
Centennial motherfuckers.
I am, of course, Scott Stantis, editorial cartoonist, coming to you from the right.
And it is probably less obvious, but nevertheless just as true that I am Ted Rall coming to you from the left.
I was talking to a friend of mine the other day who was bemoaning Ted Rall. She is a Democrat. She is sworn to support Joe Biden regardless. And boy, oh boy, do you get under their skin.
What did your friend have to say about
Uh,
poor me? And by the way, it's like I love the fact that these are the same people who say, what will it take for them to stop supporting Donald Trump? What is wrong with them that they support Trump no matter what? And I'm like, you're different, how? Well, I support Biden no matter what.
yes, no matter what. Actually,
That's the difference.
That sounds like a Rall cartoon is what that sounds like.
Yeah. Which people would stare right at and not get.
No, well, that's it's so funny because, obviously having a reputation for being a right-wingish cartoonist. It's just, I still to this day, even though I've had like nearly 8 years of being a never Trump Republican, I still get, how come you're just a pro-Trump, blah, 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 blah. And from other sides saying, why don't, from editors who are, what's the word? Oh gosh, Ted, I've used this word before. I'm trying to think. Idiots. That's it.
Oh, that's the word.
Editors are morons, and they're like, what? We can't, Stennis isn't a conservative. He doesn't do pro-Trump stuff. I'm going.
Just the other day, someone online said, it's not, why didn't you ever criticize George W. Bush?
Well, that's a good point, Ted. Why didn't you?
It is a good question. I late at night, I often think about that. Yeah.
A missed opportunity. Oh, wait, you drew him with like snot, Coke snot coming out his nose. He's dressed up.
I literally turned him into a deranged Latin American general named Generalissimo El Busho and drew him like Pinochet in every single cartoon. And I did a book that sold pretty well by that same name. I mean, I did an entire book called Generalissimo El Busho.
Yeah, but that doesn't. Why didn't you attack him?
Right, good point. I was so kind to him. I mean,
what? You gave him a cute nickname. You drew
somehow,
him with
and there were misunderstandings. Condoleezza Rice told a friend of mine that they all in the White House hated me personally, and I was like, wow. But little did they know I was nice to Bush, unbeknownst to me.
Well, see, therein lies the problem. Now we're going to be unnice to Hunter Biden, who's on trial, or just to the justice system that's trying him, more to the point. For those of you who may be living under a rock, Hunter Biden's trial now begins this week, a week after the guilty verdicts against former President Donald Trump. For all of the people who are chanting, cheering, leaping for joy, and that the criminal justice system, no one is above it. No person is above the law, Ted, except apparently your guy. So they're now bitching and moaning about this trial. They're saying it's all bullshit. It's all ticky-tacky stuff, and it shouldn't be happening at all. Who in their right minds wouldn't lie on a form that when you're getting a gun? I mean, it's the same. It's the same arguments that were being bandied about during the Clinton impeachment. Well, of course because he was being tried for perjury, which of course he committed. But not every, but most Democratic operatives and talking heads were saying, well, of course he lied about sex. Who doesn't lie about sex? I go, well,
especially because Hillary Clinton had no idea that he ever catted around. I mean,
nobody knew.
It came as a total shock to her.
It came as a shock to the nation that this guy was a dog.
Do you remember when the Monica Lewinsky scandal broke and literally, I know you're going to remember this. And the media said, literally they said, oh, he's going to go away with her to Camp David this weekend, and he's going to break the news to Hillary about what happened. Literally, they said that.
Well, and it had already been on the news.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. That whole episode. I mean,
Hillary Clinton strikes you as someone who doesn't stay informed at all, never reads the news.
No. How would she? Could you imagine? She got the newspaper and all the parts about Bill were cut out.
Yeah, like the man without a country, where they cut out all. Oh my God.
No, I can tell you from when I worked at the Commercial Appeal in Memphis, Tennessee. Back then, the Commercial Appeal circulated throughout eastern Arkansas all the way up to Little Rock. And our reporters would come in and talk about Bill Clinton and say that the guy was kind of an amazing guy, but he had a zipper problem. I mean, right. Significant. And these are just reporters. I mean, these are guys who,
and we only know about the tip of the iceberg, right? I mean,
so to speak, just the tip.
Maybe not so icy. Hot-blooded. I think he probably, no, I mean, there have to be hundreds. There have to be.
Oh no, there were literally hundreds of them. And because he was a kind of a fat, dopey looking guy in school. And I think Hillary was the first one who actually slept with him, like either the first time or more than once.
Proper style.
And
usually your first is your mom. So,
Oh, Ted. It's your aunt.
Sister?
Cousin. Yeah, whatever.
Cat.
There was a comedian it was actually a friend of ours who we know, Steve Kelly, but a friend of his, a guy who actually ended up being the creator of that 70s show, but he was performing in Memphis at the time. And so Jeanine and I had him over and he played with our kid in the pool. It turned out to be a nice guy. But he came up with a joke. He said, should I try this? I said, oh, he told it to me. I said, I don't know. But he comes out that night. Jeanine and I went to the show, true story. And it was Jeanine and I and another table of 4 people. That was it. 6 people in this club to see this guy. Mm. And so he decides to use the joke. And the joke was this, Ted, to your point. He said, this was in the 80s and they're looking to have a toxic waste dump. And Arkansas was the only state of the 50 states in our territories that actually bid for it. They wanted it in Arkansas. He goes, that makes no sense. It doesn't make any sense. But actually, if you stop and think, it does make sense, because then you can, with your third arm, you can hold down your other sister. And the table next to us, they happen to be from Arkansas.
Oops.
And they go,
and they had 3 arms.
3 arms. They go, I don't understand what's so funny here. I'm just looked over and said, no, you probably don't.
No, you don't, tripod.
So anyway, getting back to the Hunter Biden trial, and now they're doing to him what they did to Trump, which is they're dragging out the prurient details of Hunter's life, which, obviously in the Trump trial, they draw, did he have sex with Stormy Daniels? Did he, what kind of sex? Well, how long did it last? What was he wearing? What did his penis look? All the stuff that's really not salient to the case. They're doing this to Biden as well now.
Well, I do think it was actually salient to the case. I have thoughts about whether the case ought to have been brought, but once it was brought, I think, look, the whole point was that he was highly motivated to cover it up by making that hush money payment. They wanted to show what he was scared of having come out, right? So.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. It seemed to me, I mean, it's where the perjury came in. We mentioned the Clinton, when he gave the affidavit, and that's where he got into trouble. Is I did not have sex with that woman.
Mm-hmm. It's always the cover up.
It's always the line that gets you, and then once you put your, you swear to tell the truth, regardless of what God you're swearing to, you better tell the goddamn truth. I mean, that's just how this works.
So there are different, there are maybe not legally, right? I don't think legally it makes any difference at all. But I think, politically and the way that we size these things up ethically, there's a huge difference between a president of the United States and attorney attesting under verbal sworn testimony to a lie under oath versus filling out a form and checking a box and saying, yeah, I attest that everything above is true under penalty of perjury and under federal law. I mean, those feel like different acts, like Bill Clinton was sworn in like by someone. Maybe he had to put his hand on a Bible. He certainly had to put his hand up and swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I mean, Hunter Biden's in a gun shop. He checks a box. Yeah, sure. It's sort of like when you renew your iOS and there's like the 55-page tiny things like, click here if you read it. Everyone does, nobody did. Right.
And I think, but I'm wondering too, if on those forms, I have no idea. I don't buy guns, so I don't know. But I'm wondering if at the end of it, you check the box, it says, and I attest that under penalty of perjury that all of the information I've given above is true and
I'm sure
fair.
It says that.
Yeah. Okay. So no, I mean, it's a case, but it's not a case. It's ticky tacky. It's bullshittery at its worst. And Ted Rall, one of my favorite columnists, wrote a column this week and talking about the trials, and he named these trials gotcha lawsuits. And I thought that was a friggin' brilliant way to put it. The Republicans are calling it lawfare. They're not calling this one lawfare because not their guy.
They like this one.
They like this one because it's embarrassing. Being an addict, I mean, okay, I don't want to get too descriptive or too gross here, but okay, first of all, being an addict, I'm not an addict, but I can't imagine enumerating those details must get pretty ugly because, addiction is ugly.
Well, he's already come come on. He wrote an entire book about his addiction called Beautiful Things or something like that. So he's, and he kind of reading not so close between the lines, it's pretty clear that his father is kind of a terrible parent. And I believe that 100%. And he basically, Hunter Biden really, if anyone wealthy and privileged and white deserves sympathy, he does. I mean, he was in that car when his mother was killed, and so was his brother, I guess it was. And I'm sure that he never got over it. And he had a father who, he's not a warm, loving, sweet, kind man. So I'm sure he was on his own to deal with this and never really processed it right. And then when Bo died, it looks like basically Bo was basically like as close to a good person as the Biden family had. He was the, if we go with the crime family parallel, he was the Al Pacino character in The Godfather. And Bo dies of, basically lung rot from inhaling fumes in Iraq. And then, the father basically fell down a well of loneliness and despair. And the brother basically freaked out and self-medicated. I feel very sorry for Hunter Biden. I really do. I think that all the business fuck up shit where he and Joe are like conspiring to, basically extract money from the Kazakhstanis, the Ukrainians, and the Chinese and all these other people. That's kind of part of it is, Joe basically wanting Hunter to do something with his life, do something. Don't be wallowing around.
Yeah,
it's high level dysfunction, right? And
I'm just
saying that, like, first of all, as to your point, Hunter Biden should be on trial for influence peddling and for possibly collecting between $5 and $10 million worth of bribes for his father. That's what he should be on trial for.
Yes.
Just like Donald Trump should be on trial for January 6th. These two cases are bullshit. They are, let's face it, Scott, no, I doubt that you and the people you love lock their doors at night and tremble at the thought that somewhere there's a former president wandering the streets who in QuickBooks mislabeled a legal expense a political campaign expense as a legal expense. I also doubt that there's any that America need worry that there's a man wandering the streets of Southern California who 5 years ago bought a gun based on a lie, and then had his then girlfriend take it away 2 weeks later and throw it away in a dumpster. I don't think we need be terrified of that man. This is just not something that ought to be prosecuted. Republicans say that if the defendant's name wasn't Donald Trump in the hush money case, he would not have been tried. They are right. And I'm going to go say the same thing about Hunter Biden. If it wasn't Hunter Biden, this case would not have been brought.
No, no, it would have been, if it had been brought at all, it would have been an addendum to a drug addict, held up a store and shot the owner. I mean, it would have been piggybacked onto that to add more charges. I don't know. I'm going to backtrack a little bit and say I'm not sure what kind of father Joe Biden is. There's some evidence that he was very straight. There's some stories that came out of his daughter, some comments his daughter made recently, very creepy. But Joe Biden's just kind of a creepy dude. Whether or not he was a good or bad father, I don't know that I could attest to either one of those. But I just wanted to say that. So going forward, I mean, he's guilty of this. He'll be charged. I suspect he'll be found guilty. Because he did it. I mean,
he's guilty. I mean, it's dumb though. It's so dumb, right? I mean, the thing is, it's just like you're going into, in a way, right? I mean, I hate to say it, Holly Biden, right? His this was his former sister-in-law who became his girlfriend at the time. Found the gun. Well, it's very Old Testament, right? She found the gun, and she threw it away after 2 weeks. I mean, in a way, shouldn't that be the end of it? Really? Like, it was a dumb move. He didn't do it right. But it's not like he kept the gun for years. It's not like he did anything with the gun.
It's not like he brandished it when he was stoned, so he wasn't a danger. Well, first of all, you can't be a danger with something that's not around. So
right, he had it for 2 weeks.
No, I think what's going to happen, and I think you probably agree, they're going to hear the case. It's obviously being heard. It's going to be tried. They're going to go to the verdict. Part of it, the verdict will be guilty, and he'll be charged whatever the
probation and a fine.
I don't even know if is it probation.
I mean, I think honestly, probation makes sense here. I mean, it's a crime that involves. I mean, look, to look at it the other way, some hobo could have been going through the dumpster and found the gun and then used it to kill someone, right? So that's probably not what happened. It probably ended up in the landfill. But the point is that, like, it was endangering the public. That is something that probably a judge is going to feel like he should be held accountable for. I don't, honestly. I think it should be a slap on the wrist. Maybe community service, like, go and give speeches to kids about don't be like me, something like that. But like,
yeah, this is what happens. This is what happens when you're on drugs. This is what can happen. You can make $1 million deals. Apparently, I don't know if that's going to dissuade many kids, to be perfectly honest.
And fuck a lot of prostitutes.
Yeah, apparently. I thought that like crack and coke kind of put a dent into your ability as a man to function that way.
Really? I heard the opposite.
Well, initially it can, but then down the road it affects it because it's blood pressure. It's a lot of other things. It's detrimental to your physiology and hence would impact your ability to,
Yeah. No, I'm sure that's yeah. Okay. I mean, I don't know from experience after having never done those drugs, but
you live in New York City. You do them all the time. That's what you people do, isn't it?
That's Clovis, man. He's like knee deep in crack all the time. That's why he's running around all the time.
He's like Tony Montoya. He's just got this mountain of coke in front of him and just plops his face into it. Okay. Well, I did notice an extraordinary lack of rodents in your apartment. So yeah,
that's true. Yeah, no, we're rodent free here at Chateau Rall. Yeah. So look, I do think it's like, look, the head of the NKVD, which was the predecessor to the Soviet KGB, was a guy named Berea, Laventley Berea. And he was a sadistic bastard. And he famously, among many other things, said, "You show me the man, and I will find you the crime." And
Mm.
I think, and I think that's right. I think you could, with enough information, truthful information about anybody, you could find something to charge them with, especially in this day and age when our legal code is over 225 years old, and it's big. There's a lot of laws in there. Like, Alvin Bragg found that ridiculous law in there that nobody had ever been prosecuted on to go after Trump. And it's like, oh, let's use this bad boy.
You have to admit, Alvin Bragg, for all of his faults, and I think when he ran there, he did run saying he was going to prosecute Donald Trump. And I think that to me is repulsive.
It's foul.
But he must have done a great job because he got guilty on every count. I
Well,
mean, that's extraordinary.
It doesn't hurt to have a judge who's so in the bag. I mean, come on, the judge donated money to Biden. Not much money. I mean, it's like nothing, $15 or something. But anyway, he donated money to him, more than I can say. And his daughter is a major fundraiser for the Democratic Party, tens of millions of dollars. I mean, come on, this is a Democratic household that and they got the right judge. I mean, and not all judges in New York are Biden supporters, So
Yeah,
and they
I
should
don't
have
know.
found one who wasn't.
You and I both know that there are prosecutors. Many of them are in the prosecutor's office because they're not good enough to be going to private practice right away and make that kind of money.
Oh, that's true.
But
That's
he
like
did a
this
good
great,
job.
that's like the old joke. We're doing jokes. Like, what do you call what do fellow law school students call the person who graduates with a 1.5 average? Your Honor.
Well, that's certainly true in Chicago, where they have judges that I swear to God got their law degrees from, draw the pirate on the back of the matchbook. Okay, so I mean, do you agree with that? That's how this is. I mean, he's going to be found guilty. He's going to be hit with, it could be community service.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think he will get probation, no community service, and a fine. I mean, maybe $100,000 or something. But I was going to ask you, what do you think about the political ramifications? Any?
No, none. I mean, the same for political ramifications that happened last week with the Trump verdict. Nothing.
Well, there's some soupçon at this point of some people who say that they're uncomfortable, that they are maybe moving away from Trump because of what happened last week, because they're worried that he might not be able to govern from prison. I suspect that goes away if he's not given any time. What do you think?
Yeah, what is it? July 11th is the sentencing.
Yeah.
If he gets like he should, I think again, probation, a fine, then I mean, has solidified and energized his base. Anyone in that base who was considering not voting, they're going to get out and vote.
Right.
I've described Trump voters this way. The guy, you're driving down the freeway and this big old truck comes roaring up behind you. You're going 75 in a 70. And he goes roaring up behind you, goes zipping by you. He's got the MAGA bumper stickers. And then 2 miles down the road, you see that he's been pulled over by the highway patrol. And he's saying, why me? Why is the system against me? Those are the Trump voters. And so when they see something like Trump, so when Trump says, I'm taking this for you, the system's against me, they're 110% into that comment because they have been hit with, drunken driving, even though they only had 13 beers in the course of 20 minutes. My point is that, is this going to change things? And the other
well, it does, and there's an implication that we do need to talk about just as an aside. Okay. Well, he now has a record. So next time he's convicted of something, there's no longer that, well, this is a first-time offense.
Oh no, in terms of sentencing and so on, but will any of those other trials happen before the election? No. Election, and if they
Puerto Rico just died.
Well, Plus, I mean, how could you have found a bigger idiot to be
Oh,
the prosecutor in that?
this is America, probably, but yeah, there was.
Oh, that's a high
He's
bar.
up there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
She
God,
also ran on that.
she also, yeah, like I've mentioned many times, she ran on that. So what happens? I mean, okay, let's assume for a moment, Ted, okay, sentencing is probation, a fine. Okay. And then the other trials are because the Trump team works very hard at at putting the brakes on and installing as much as they can. If the trials go into, and assuming for a moment that Trump is elected, and now come January 20th, he's sworn in, what happens to these cases? Do they go forward? That gets to be
no, because of the DOJ rule that you don't prosecute a sitting president. So, I mean, theoretically, the DOJ rule doesn't apply to Georgia,
right,
state,
and
local
state
courts.
prosecutions.
Maybe not, but I've got to say, I think in reality, it's like he's the president of the United States. Really, you're gonna? I mean, come on, like it's just like, come on. I mean, at that point, you now have a constitutional crisis, right? That really calls for the Supreme Court to step in.
Yeah, and when they step in, they always resolve it to everyone's satisfaction.
And fairly, and not along.
Yeah, see, I don't have a problem with the president being tried while he's president. I really don't. In this case,
I don't
and
either.
In this
That's just
instance,
not our system, really.
But in this case, the trials and the minutia of the cases have already started long ago. They've already been moving through the criminal justice system. To say that they come to a stop because effectively becoming president gives you a get out of jail free card that we've already seen such assault on the justice system and people's trust in it that, boy, that would just obliterate it. And maybe that's just another step in the Ted Rall theory that that America is on its last legs.
I don't know if it's a theory at this point, but yeah, okay. Okay. I think it's just a description.
Well, on that note, let's tie things up here. We're going to go on to another segment where we're going to be talking about, I forget. Something.
We'll get to it.
Or not. It'll be really.
Or That's going to be awesome. You're going to love it when we figure out.
Trust me. We'll be back. You're listening to the DMZ America podcast.
The thing that's going to come.
We're back, I think. I don't know. What? Who? Get off my lawn, you damn kids. Hi, I'm Scott Stantis, editorial cartoonist, coming to you from the right for the DMZ America podcast.
And I'm Ted Rall, editorial cartoonist, coming to you from the left, also for the DMZ America podcast, because that's great, because we are on the DMZ America podcast.
It all comes together in a neat little package, doesn't it, Ted? So we've talked about this before, but now there's another story coming from inside the White House about Joe Biden's mental acuity or lack thereof. It goes on to enumerate many instances where he zones out. He just sort of freezes. He starts babbling incoherently.
As opposed to babbling coherently.
Yeah, I guess you could babble coherently. I guess that would be a 19th century romantic poem, which I don't care for those. Anyway, so, I mean, this just adds another brick in the wall of the
brick in the wall.
How can you can't eat your meat if you haven't eaten, I can't have your pudding if you haven't eaten your meat. Which again, Joe Biden apparently blurts out regularly. In all seriousness, I mean, the Wall Street Journal, no friend of the Biden administration. They have had some columns and editorials that I think go beyond the pale at, the destruction of America, which is horseshit. I mean, it's just not. Joe Biden is not that great a threat to democracy. Where he is a threat is the fact that he's losing his mind. And we have someone who I have often believed, and believe even more now than ever before, Ted, that his cognitive skills are not up to the office, and that's a danger. That means unelected people, are running the executive branch of the United States government, and that's a problem. That's a coup d'état. That's something very dangerous, very bad, and frankly, I don't want Donald Trump to get reelected. I think I've made that abundantly clear. And the only way he could win is if he's running against a doddering old guy who can't seem to talk. Now, you know, lately, I'm not sure how many of your Democratic friends you've noticed have been saying Biden has to get out there and use the bully pulpit. He
Right.
can't. He
Yeah.
can't.
No, he cannot.
He did go to France today. He was in France at Normandy, and kind of conveniently forgot that the Soviet Union lost tens of millions of people. Whoopsies, in the fight against Nazi Germany.
Did he forget? Or, I mean, by the way, I think it's very, I mean, Putin does have an ICC criminal arrest warrant. So I don't think he could have attended. The French would have arrested him. But, you know, Putin should have been invited. And if not him, they could have invited, they could have sent someone else, you know, like Medvedev or someone. I mean, look, the Soviet Union lost 28 million people. I mean, it's like, really? Like, they did all the work, really.
They did a lot of the work. America,
85%,
France,
let's say.
I don't think it's that high. I think especially in the Western part and in Africa, where, you know, particularly Great Britain, lost a sizable number of combatants. I mean, yes, they lost by far. They lost the most people. But getting back to, I mean, so you had Joe Biden on the beaches of Normandy, gave a speech. It was okay. You know, I don't know what the whispering thing is, but that's the Joe Biden style.
That's in the Wall Street Journal article, right? Where they said that nobody can even internally in you know, in a cabinet meeting understand what he's saying.
Yeah. So okay, so we can keep this short because you and I have talked about this a lot in the 150 episodes, 149 previous episodes of the DMZ America podcast. My question, I guess, is, I mean, will the Wall Street Journal article, I mean, it just adds to the lore, right? And then the people who support him are going to dismiss it.
It does add to it. I mean, here's the thing. I mean, I think it's meaningful. It's part of the drip, 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 because A, it's the Wall Street Journal, and frankly, they don't usually get things like this wrong. And B, oddly, we've seen him behave this way, but we've been told repeatedly, no, behind closed doors, he's great. And here you have people from behind closed doors saying, no, he's exactly the way you see him. So
probably worse because he's not jacked up.
That probably shouldn't be news to anybody, but because we've been lied to so much, you know, I mean, come on. What they're telling us is not true and can't be true. He's sharp. Give me a fucking break. I mean, really, truly, look at him, listen to him. I mean, cut the shit. Quit looking right in our faces and telling us that, you know, that the thing I'm eating that smells and looks exactly like a poo is a chocolate bar. Cut the shit. I know the difference. I mean, I know what a senile person looks like. I know what someone who's mentally diminished looks like. Okay, like accurately, how far gone is he? Hospice ready? No. Is it like, you know, is he a year away from death with full-blown Alzheimer's? Also no. Is he 4 years away from death with full-blown Alzheimer's? Probably.
Well, is he assisted living?
Is he Reagan in 1987? Yes. That's the issue.
Yeah, and they could patch Reagan together enough to give a speech. They did, you know, if you remember, the press conferences got fewer and fewer, if non-existent. Yeah, that's a great comparison. I'm dealing with a family member who's at a independent living place right now, but she's right on the cusp of going into assisted living and then memory care. As we all know, that seems to be the arc of these things. But Biden, I think, would be at assisted living. And I'm not saying this, I say this with no glee.
He's effectively in assisted living now.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. But I think it's important. I want both of us to go on the record on this and say, neither of us say this with any glee. Both of us have dealt with parents who have gone through this. It breaks our heart in what the Biden family must be going through dealing with this. But
yeah, however, I hate to say it, like, where's their fucking patriotism? I mean, really, truly. I mean,
Yeah.
where is their fucking sense of duty to the country? And if they have deluded themselves into thinking that only they can run the country and no one else can, then this country's finished anyway. I mean,
Well, they have the reins of power, and that seems to be the seductive part of the White House is you're in the and you don't want to let it go.
yeah,
Um,
well, again, where's your patriotism? Like, even Donald Trump, after trying to overthrow the government, left of his own accord on January 19th, 2021. I mean, it's like he can't do the job. You know, Joe Biden's not up for it. He can't. There's a reason that you can't. You know, like the reason that like our culture requires, you know, men, or at least historically, men who asked girls to marry them to give them an expensive ring, was it was kind of like a stress test. If you can't come up with a few $1,000s to buy a ring, you probably can't afford to be married and be the head of a household. And if you can't campaign for the presidency, you probably can't really be an effective president. You probably can't govern, because both of those things are stressful and require a lot of energy. Joe Biden's not campaigning for the presidency in any kind of classic sense. There's no press conferences. There's no interviews. There's very few public appearances. Everything is carefully scripted. You know, we saw today at Normandy, he read a speech. Okay, he read a speech, but then he was looking to sit down because he was obviously so fatigued that he was unable to stand, even at a time when all the leaders who were present were called to stand at attention in honor of those who had fallen there on Omaha Beach. I mean, it's bad.
yes, but I really, like I said, I want to say no glee here, no joy, no
Let
ha
Vice
ha ha.
let Vice President Harris step up and have her shot. Let her try.
Well, it's too late now. I mean, it's not too late. Technically, she can do it, but it's too late politically, I think. Don't you? I mean, you still have 6 months until the election, but it would be.
Well, here's the question. Okay, we are where we are now. Obviously, Joe Biden never should have announced he was running for re-election. He should have groomed Harris from day one to be the new president. She should have been like joined at the hip with him at every step of the way. He should have been training her to be president. Okay, but he didn't do that. Okay, so we are where we are. The question now is, who is likelier to win in the fall? It might be her.
I think she is, and we've had this discussion too. And I've talked about her improving performance, and it has improved. But that's like saying, you know, going back to your
His has
church
gotten
sandwiches.
worse, and her numbers are higher than his now.
Well, low bar, and but I'm
Okay,
going back to
but
I'm going back to your turd sandwich and saying it's like, okay, you've got the turd sandwich. Now we're going to put mustard on it. I mean, it's
yeah,
that
you've got a pair of. Here's the question. Okay, so you're the Democratic Party. Are you going to go into November with a pair of threes or a pair of fives? It's up to you. You're probably going to lose, but I'd rather have the pair of fives.
Well, what helps you nationally too? I mean, I think that's important to if you're the Democratic Party, you're thinking, how does this help down ticket? Harris would reinvigorate the Black community that is deserting the president in droves, if the polls are to be believed. And I think they're probably, because so many of them seem to corroborate.
Get the old Hillary contingent together.
Yeah, to get the old, I mean, just to get the old Democratic Party coalition back together, which is essential.
And she could probably do a few things to shore up her weakness among progressives. She needs to tell progressives that she's going to do something about criminal justice reform. That
easiest thing in the world to do is to say that she endorses, and she said this, and then the White House have walked it back. She endorsed when the Drug Administration said they're going to take marijuana off the Schedule 1. Something as simple as that, which really, frankly, doesn't change.
But also go back in time and erase everyone's records who ever.
Yeah, okay, you could, but you hear what I'm saying. Something as simple and dramatic, seemingly dramatic,
how about
but
release every prisoner, federal, state, and local, who is in awaiting trial or convicted of a non-violent crime.
That's a big stretch. I would say go with what's doable and what most Americans would say. Okay, you know, you'll hear Republicans go, what? And then they'll look at it and go, well, it's actually not that big a deal. take the
I mean, a
weed
lot of
off of.
Republicans also kind of are in favor of this too. They
Yeah, off the
the
record.
prisons are expensive and they're really full.
Yes. But I mean, I'd say, yeah, expunge people's who are convicted of marijuana possession. I'm not sure what you do with people who actually serve time for it.
I think you kind of owe them probably some compensation. Hey,
There may be.
send Zelensky a few, less money and use the money for that. By the way, I
So,
want to say parenthetically, I thought it was a fucking obscenity today on Omaha Beach that the
go
Soviet
ahead.
Union
I know
and
where you're
Russia
going.
were snubbed, but that little fucking clown, Zelensky was there. Ukraine, they were on the Nazi side in World War II. Okay, when the Germans invaded, they came in the USSR. They came in through the Ukraine SSR because they knew the Ukrainians would be happy to see them. And they were. The Ukrainians threw roses in front of their tanks. They collaborated with the Nazis. At the end of the war, the Red Army, the Russians, the communists liberated the death camps, who were guarded by the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians were such fanatics at Auschwitz that there were complaints from the SS saying these Ukrainians are abusing the Jews. They were that crazy, that anti-Semitic. The pogroms, the worst pogroms in history were in Ukraine. And Zelensky's predecessor that put him into power was put into power in 2014 by a coalition that included neo-Nazis. I mean, I'm sorry, Ukraine has a Nazi problem, and they cannot see the issue, but they need to be gone. They need to, Ukraine should not have been there. This is like inviting Hitler to the party. Like, sorry, I know I guess you could say, well, thank you, Ukraine. We couldn't have done this war without you. But it's like, really, truly, they shouldn't be there.
So I didn't see him there. Was he wearing the T-shirt thing? And
I didn't see, but he was there. Yeah. And okay. Biden had the fucking nerve to say that it was the same exact struggle that had happened on D-Day between fascism and freedom as America is trying to fight by its proxy war with Ukraine and Russia. Give me a fucking break. I mean, even if you buy that the Ukrainians have a good and just noble cause, it's not the same thing. I mean, it's a corrupt country. There's no elections. It's like, and it's not really very important to the US, and nothing would happen if Ukraine were completely eaten up. This isn't the same thing as like the Nazis occupied all of Europe, North Africa, and the Western Soviet Union. I mean, if they would have taken England if they could have, and then we might have been next. Nazi Germany was an existential threat to the United States. That's not true about Russia. Russia just wants to be left alone.
No, it's not true, Ted. And you know it. Come on. Russia wants what Russia wants, and Russia would love nothing more than to get the old band back together. And if you're in the Baltic states, you got to be looking at this, shaking in your boots, thinking we're next. And oh gosh, not the EU, but the NATO response has been, I think, has put the kibosh to that notion in Putin's mind, at least for a while. But come on, I mean, you can't say that this is nothing. You can't say that you can't dismiss this invasion of a sovereign nation, regardless of how you feel about it and regardless of the history. Russia invading it is, what's the word I'm looking for? Wrong.
I agree that countries shouldn't invade each other. I'm just
that's saying, big of you.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm also saying
the international community.
But also, I can't imagine but the United States is in no moral position to say anything about invading other countries. Sorry.
What have we done, Ted? What? What? I mean, today.
Oh.
Actually, we had an American soldier killed in Niger, a month ago, 2 months ago? Mm-hmm. And it's like, my first reaction when I heard that news was like, what the fuck was he doing in Niger? Right. Are we there? And apparently we are. And then they said how many bases are in Africa, and it's many.
Oh, yeah. Many.
Anyway, that's a different subject altogether.
But I just want to so anyway, getting back to what were we talking about?
Sure, Biden.
I gotta say,
no, Joe Biden and his lack of cognitive
look,
ability.
I mean, honestly, I really don't even know what to say. This whole thing, I mean,
he should resign. He should resign
he should resign.
Yes, you and I agree on this, that the time has come. These reports are becoming more and more prevalent. And in the words, in a phrase that Ted Rall uses a lot, what are you going to believe? What we're telling you, or your own lying eyes?
Or don't resign. You're so close to finishing your term. Finish your term, but basically, have Harris be the de facto president, and let her be the nominee.
Well, she'd have. That's a tough. It's a tough
thing.
There's
no other choice. They can't sideline her. She's a black woman.
Yeah, no, you're right, and he can't change running mates.
No,
we've talked about that. There's no way. So okay, that's the and who knows? She may surprise us and turn into just the most glorious, bestest president we ever had.
I mean, wait, before we go, what presidents we've had some presidents who really surprised us, right? I mean,
oh yeah, Harry Truman surprised people. Oh gosh, who was it who surprised?
Polk was a surprise, right?
Hawkins, no, he was elected. He was elected and was a great president, quite frankly. Probably one of the most underestimated. Tippecanoe. Tyler was okay. He saved the spot, but I think Chester Arthur would be a good would be the one that I'd point to and say, because he was a hack.
Rutherford B. Hayes not as bad as people thought.
Well, Rutherford B. Hayes was elected and then finished his one term.
Right, but he was sort of.
What are we talking? Are we talking about vice presidents who succeeded, or people
who
became presidents?
People who you would be, you didn't really think would be a good president. Theodore Roosevelt, I think, an outstanding president.
They thought he was a nut. That's the reason that they didn't want him to be the mayor, the governor of New York anymore. Yeah. They said, let's get rid of him, make him vice president. McKinley's healthy. He's going to live out the second term, and then, Roosevelt will go away, because vice presidents back then never got nominated for president. Mm-hmm. But
but he turned out to be fantastic.
Don't go to Buffalo. That seems to be,
Yeah. Well, that's good advice.
And more importantly, don't invite Robert Kennedy to anything. I mean, Robert Lincoln to anything, because all three presidential assassinations up to McKinley, Robert Lincoln was there. It's like, can you imagine? Every stinking time.
It's really bizarre.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah. So, all right. Well, we'll leave that there. We've solved that problem. All right.
Okay. So coming back,
we'll talk about the EU. Go ahead.
We are going to help Ted Rall decide who to vote for in the French EU elections.
All right.
So put on your thinking caps, kids, because this is going to get interesting. This is DMZ America. I'm Scott Stantis, coming to you from the right.
And I'm Ted Rall, coming to you from the left. Bonjour tout le monde. Je suis dessinateur de politique Ted Rall. Je viens de la gauche et venir de la droite. Ce dessinateur est mon ami
Scott Stantis, coming to you from the right.
Il faut dire
I mean, the most un-French French name, and I'm mostly French. It's just like my grandmothers who had beautiful French accents. I mean, they say my brothers Georges and Crec and Marc. Scott. It was anyway. So Ted and I, before we started this, he showed me this. I think we can do it if you watch. By the way, you can watch this video on YouTube. Ted, you got not Rumble. That's your radio show.
And you can also, I put it on Rumble too.
You put this on Rumble?
Oh,
I didn't know that. I wish you told me.
That's that check for $100,000 you get every month. That's from that.
That's what that's for?
Yeah. Oh, I know you thought it was for male prostitution, but no.
Yeah, I thought it was like the easiest male prostitution gig ever. Anyway, Ted, you got an envelope. Before we started recording, Ted showed me the envelope he got in the mail today.
A couple days ago.
And where's it from?
It's from France. It's it doesn't say, it's prepaid. It's a so it's like prepaid envelope like we have, right? Like pre-sorted.
Okay. And so it is filled with what?
So when you're a French citizen living overseas, I don't know if they
Ted is.
As I am, because through my mother in France, the French government sends you a sheaf of propaganda for each of the political parties, their candidates, and their slates, telling you what they're all about. In France, the political parties are constantly changing names. So, for example, here's Raphael Glucksmann of the, he's the Socialist Party, Parti Socialiste.
He doesn't. I thought he was.
It says "Wake Up Europe."
Yeah.
So
to what?
Well, wake it up. Quit sleeping. So here it's saying like Europe should stop being so obsessed with America's security needs and pay more attention to our own.
That does not sound like Socialist Party propaganda to me.
It does to me. And
does it?
And so it'll show like you buy. So there's on the back, there's the name of all the electors for the various districts, right? There are 81 provinces in France. So, you look at yours, you're like, I'm in number 36. I vote for Laurent Dufal or whatever. So anyway, that's how that works. So here
so we have the socialists. How should
Ted vote? This one is Emmanuel Macron's party. There's the president.
What party is that? Is that like the wussy party or the?
It's the puss party. It's the fuck your teacher party. It's called Besoin d'Europe. Which
for those of you not in the know, President Macron married his teacher. What? Yes,
that is true. So basically, it says with Europe, France is stronger.
Okay.
Okay, then fine.
Certainly true during World War II.
So that's then there's the Radical Party, which is not
what makes them so radical?
They're not. And then
what do you mean? What is
they're
it?
Not. It's hard to explain. Basically, it means back to basics in French, right? Then this is the Jean-Luc Mélenchon party, which is radical left, far communist. These at one point these were known as the new anti-capitalists. So anyways, this is the president of the group of the left in the European Parliament is this woman Manon Aubry, and it says that she's going to impose wage and price controls, a constitutional right to retirement, prioritizing the environment over all other needs, and that sort of thing. Again, we refuse all budget cuts to schools, the medical system, Social Security, and we so basically, we are also in favor of the people of Palestine in Gaza.
That should be the TED party.
Oh yeah, no, that I would vote for them. So then there's the Pete Buttigieg party. Apparently, this guy. This is he looks just like him.
He does look like a little fella.
FX Bellamy. So this is a right wing party.
Hence the tie.
Yeah, they basically don't want to do a lot.
He's wearing.
Yeah, so that might be the Scott party. Then there's
hey.
Well, kind of like leave it alone, leave it be. So then there's the United Left.
But those guys look united. This one guy has his hands on the other guy's shoulders.
Yeah, they're uniting. So it's and I like how they introduce themselves. One of them is like, I'm from a family of farmers. So anyway, so this seems to be more like technocratic left. And then there's La France revient. The people who follow the French right will recognize Marine Le Pen, perennial French presidential candidate.
She looks good. That's a great Photoshop job.
Well, she is a very attractive woman. She's one of those French women who's getting better looking as she gets older, for sure.
Well, you're showing me these pictures of these candidates, and they're all skinny and so chic and beautiful. I'm going.
They're French.
And then we have our candidates here.
Then unfortunately, now here is the Lutte ouvrière, which is workers' fight. You will know
Right
the hammer
on.
and
They've got a
sickle.
hammer and sickle and a guy with a black shirt undone, 2 buttons down. That's a
Yep,
working man right there.
that's right. That's
Or
right.
it's your weird
So
uncle at the
we
barbecue.
are
It's
against
one,
we are
it's one
against
or the
imperialist
other.
war. We are against a Europe based on capitalism. Um, uh, we will get rid of capitalism and install communism. All
Wow,
right,
it sounds like they could be
and
going
we're
to school at
against
Columbia.
nationalism. Note that they have a big crowd of people, mostly wearing red. So at least
Yeah,
we're color coordinated politically here. I like that they send all this crap, by the way.
that is awesome. No, here
The
in
Rural Alliance. Note, by the way, how many parties I don't even know. I've lost count. There's the ecological party here. Basically the Greens. Then there's, and it goes on and on. There's another one, the centrist ecological party, maybe a little bit less militant. And then there's arguably a little bit too far to the right, but no doubt easy on the eyes.
oh, we.
Yeah,
Oh,
Mario
ooh la
Maréchal.
la.
Maréchal is an unfortunate name, as you know, in French, because of Maréchal Pétain, the
Oh,
collaborator.
well, but tell him what she stands for, Ted, because it won't be, given the name, it won't be a surprise.
Yeah, that's true. She's against the Islamification of Europe. She demands a complete naval blockade against immigration, expulsion of all foreigners, refusal of all European taxes, complete deregulation of business, except more cash payments to farmers, more nuclear power, and protect our children against wokeism and LGBT activism.
Wow. And it's weird when you watch the video, it's shocking.
Anti-European guy, Florian Philippot, and his sidekick with his best name ever, Jean-Frédéric Poisson, which is, of course, the French word for fish. This is a man who looks like he has not missed many fish dinners.
No, he has a fish mustache.
Now, in honor of Clovis, however, he supports
we will end with this.
The Animaliste Party.
And for those of you who aren't watching the video, you see someone from the back and they're holding a cat who seems to be either hugging them or about to eat them. You can't really tell with cats.
No, and the logo of the Animalist Party is a dude inside a dog.
Yes, it's a silhouette of a dog with a human silhouette.
Everyone knows who has a dog, that there's a person inside of every dog.
Well, that's true.
And so they want to this is all about animal rights, and prioritizing that. And if you vote for animals, it means that you're pro-environment. It means that you're pro-healthcare, you're pro proper nutrition, and all that stuff. So
how do you make that leap? I'm sorry.
That's what they say. And there's all these, and then there's I think this party obviously reflects the fact that France, cats are more popular than dogs. The cat picture is huge. There is a small picture of a beagle down here.
Oh,
he's very cute. I would vote for that.
Sorry. No, I'm sorry, Ted. Walking through Paris or one of the other French cities I've walked through,
apparently ducklings are also represented.
Well, ducks are people too. Now, do animals get to vote in France yet?
That's soon. That's in the next.
That's next.
Well, they're going to start slowly with ducklings and then see how it works. I mean, the problem is if cats are probably going to push the country to the far right. So
before we launch into, and castigating American democracy for not having that kind of richness of choices, may I ask who you, I mean, it's a secret ballot, I assume. So, but I'm going to ask who will you vote for?
I really will vote for Mélenchon's party, the far left, because, that's who I am.
Okay, not the socialists seems to be a really strange platform.
The Socialist Party is the old Socialist Party that François
Mitterrand.
Yeah, and they're a shadow of their former selves. They're very disorganized. I mean, they're by French standards, they're a center-left party. By our standards, they'd be a far-left party. But bear in mind, by our standards, the French far right is basically the Democratic Party here. So they're on a different scale than we are.
Okay, so we know how you're going to vote. Now, okay, here's the thing. The Libertarian Party just had its national convention in Washington, D.C., and they invited Donald Trump to speak there. They also invited RFK Jr., and I can't remember who else was there, but they actually booed Trump off the stage. I think the leadership of the Libertarian Party has the Mises, court, whatever they call them, the Mises group, and that's named after von Mises, the libertarian economist. But these guys have gone nuts, and they're MAGA lovers, is what they are. And I think they felt that if they have Donald Trump come there, that somehow he would say they would nominate him for president as well as the Republicans. Donald Trump, of course, being Donald Trump and being a dumbass, later said they couldn't nominate me. It's against the law. They can't do it. Well, in fact, they can. And Ted and I can name a handful of presidential nominees who had numerous nominations from numerous parties.
Sure.
Horace Greeley is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So in this
and
instance,
certainly state by state, like many here in New York, we have the old Liberal Party line and the Conservative Party line, and
Minnesota has the Farmer and Labor Party.
And if you're in Minnesota, if you're on, Biden will surely be on the Farmer Labor line. Biden will surely be, if the Liberal, here it'll be Working Families. Biden will surely be the nominee of the Working Families Party. And the Conservative Party, if it's on the ballot, will choose Trump.
So, and anyway, they booed Trump off the stage. RFK, they listened to politely, but they ended up, and the Mises group had a candidate who was really a douchebag, and they did not nominate him. They nominated a guy named Chase Oliver. And Ted, I got to tell you, the more I'm learning about the guy, the more I like him. Liberal, 30-year-old libertarian, happens to be gay, but he ran a 50-state campaign. He kind of like is the anti-Biden. He actually, one of the quotes from his acceptance speech was, "I'm not a felon and I can remember my own name."
America is soaring with the eagles.
Now you got to love that. Come on. I mean, you got to love that. The guy is fairly quick-witted. I'm going to watch him more and more. I haven't been this interested in a libertarian candidate since 2016 and Gary Johnson, the former two-term governor from New Mexico. But that's it. I mean, we got Jill Stein running on the Green Party again. That's another retread. She's becoming the Gus Hall of her generation. You've got Dr. Cornel West, who's doing his, quote, jazz campaign, whatever the fuck that means. Apparently you smoke a lot,
including him.
Apparently you smoke a lot of weed and don't make public appearances. And I'm trying to think, and RFK, of course, Jr., and what that means. I don't know what that does or does not mean. The polls that came out, he's really hemorrhaging support. At one point, he was at what, 19%. The latest polls that came out showed him to be at 6%. You and I have talked about this. In the Libertarian Party now, there are laws being passed. Ted, this will surprise you. Go ahead. Show me your jaw agape and stunned. There it is. That there are state parties, both Republican and Democrat, that are getting together and can find common ground, folks. And their common ground is to fuck over third parties. Yes. That's their common ground. It's embarrassing and it is disgusting. And it seems to fly very much in the face of American democracy. This duopoly is, I mean, we just spent an entire podcast saying how fucked up Donald Trump is and how fucked up Joe Biden is. Those are your only real choices. I would urge you to look at Chase Oliver, but I mean, let's be honest. They are working very hard to get the Libertarian parties off of state ballots so they can't, erode, especially the Republicans, erode Republican votings, because those of us who don't like MAGA Republicans have some place to vote, at least, that we can feel good about. Ted, I mean, you and I have been railing against this since the beginning of this podcast. I think we talked about it in the first or second podcast. We're now on the 150th. We do this once a week. You guys do the math. Is there any hope? I don't think there is. I really don't. I think the fact that we're seeing, For true democracy in this country, for the kind of
No, not under
democracy
the current
you just
system.
showed from France, where I can vote for, I mean, okay, we're giggling about it, but the animal party, but you can vote for a far left party. You can vote for a socialist party. You can vote for a communist party. You can also vote for a nationalist party. You can vote for a centrist party. You can vote for numerous conservative parties.
Yep. And
I
a far right
love,
party.
I love that. I can't tell you how much I love
I
that.
love that too. Well, that's what
So why?
that's what representative democracy would look like. The French system is far from perfect, but it's much better than ours in terms of offering choice.
Well, let me throw this at you real quick, Ted. Italy, for instance, has the same type of construct and has the same number, maybe even more parties. For years, Italy was a joke because it was changing governments literally every 4 months. I'm not making that up, kids.
Yeah,
That was a true thing in the 70s and early 80s. That to me is ineffective governing. You can't govern when you're changing the government literally every 4 months.
That's true.
So how do you, I mean, I guess Germany does it by putting in a chancellor in charge and then having parliamentary elections. The UK is in a fix right now because they've just called for what's that called? Not a spot election, but a flash election that's coming up next month. And I love the fact that their elections only last 4 weeks, period. That's it. That's all you get. I love that. But France is different. France is more along the lines of the American system in that they have longer campaigns. They have a president. They also have, I want to say, a prime minister.
They do.
So the prime minister can change with the changing of parties and the majority parties in their legislature. Why, in the name of God, has America fought so hard, and is there so little interest in elevating third parties? We haven't had a third party elevated until the Bull Moose and the Reform parties of the early part of the 20th century, Teddy Roosevelt,
what about the election of 1860? That was a true four-way race.
Yeah, you had the Southern Democrats, the Northern Democrats,
Douglas and John Bell and John C. Breckinridge.
Yes, Breckinridge, who has eyes you could melt into. Anyway,
and a very desirable and very collectible campaign ephemera.
Ted is now bragging because he has this collection that is friggin' unbelievable. And Scott was in New York looking at it, drooling over it. And just, I mean, yours is 30 times better. I have a pretty good representation of second half of the 20th century buttons. But past that, Ted kicks my sorry ass.
It's hard to get that older stuff. You just have to pay for it.
Well, and you focus on it. Anyway, you're right. So the 1860 election, but 1860 also, and a third party candidate won that one. Guy named Abe Lincoln, some nobody from Illinois. I'm not sure if we've heard from him since. But I'm just saying, where in third parties actually made a dent.
1924 with Robert La Follette, right? He didn't make a difference, but he did make a mark.
I think he took Wisconsin, if I'm not mistaken. I think
about 10% of the vote or so.
Eugene Debs got 1 million votes in 2016. You know, you have
he ran a bunch of times, right?
And Ross Perot, they've impacted the election. I mean, 68, you would think Wallace taking several southern states would have impacted that election. They would never have gone for Hubert Humphrey. Hubert Humphrey gave an anti-segregate. This is one of the reasons to like Hubert Humphrey, by the way. When he was the boy mayor of Minneapolis, he gave a speech at the 1948 Democratic Convention castigating the South and the institution of segregation and Jim Crow laws. God bless him for doing that. But in 1968, would those states have gone for Humphrey? I doubt it.
Right. And so then we go to 1980 with John Anderson.
John Anderson, yeah, he faded fast. Interesting guy.
And then 2000.
No, 1992 with Ross Perot, who definitely had an impact and definitely impacted the election. Absolutely. And in 96 as well against Dole, when Dole was nominated. Bob Dole, who you know would vote for Bob Dole anytime because Bob Dole liked Bob Dole. He was,
yeah. So I mean, well, I do think there is one structural impediment. I mean, first of all, there's just the fact that we have two parties because we've always had two parties, and thus we must always have two parties. But there's also, it's just inertia. But it's kind of like when you go start at a company and you ask, oh, so why do you guys all, why do you all pick your noses with your left finger? Well, we've always done it that way. Yeah, but why do you do that?
Yeah.
Because that's what we've always, so that's like that. But I think there's also the fact it's the Constitution. You have to get 270 electoral votes in order to win in a three-way race. It's extremely unlikely that in a true three-way race now, you would probably not get a party get to 270, and the House of Representatives would decide the election, right? So the House of Representatives is probably controlled not by an insurgent third party, but either the D's or the R's. So let's say you did have, Stantis for president, wins with 38% of the vote, can't get to 270, and then is stuck at 240, goes to the House, they vote for the Republican.
I'm wondering if you could put in a proviso. I'm not sure that this would meet constitutional muster, but I'm wondering if you couldn't say, let's say Ted Rall, has like 5 electoral votes and Scott needs 4 to get over the top. I could say, Ted, what do you want? And Ted could say,
then we'd be at that's kind of like what happened with the compromise of 1877, right? They reassigned electors.
Yes. And so I'm wondering if you couldn't say, well, a de facto, what are they?
Parliamentary system.
Yeah, a de facto
parliamentary coalition, basically.
A coalition government that would say of the Rallians would meet, would agree to meet up with the
But that system is different from what we have. It would require a constitutional amendment.
No, you bring up a very interesting point about the Electoral College. That had not occurred to me until you just said it, quite frankly. And you make a very good point. You could not, if you had a dozen parties running, conceivably no one would reach 270.
And then whoever controls the House just votes for their own party.
Well, yeah. Or like I said, that's why I propose, is there a rule where Ted could say, I give up my electoral votes and hand them to Scott Stantis? I don't think they're that fungible, but maybe they are.
I think getting rid of the Electoral College would solve the problem.
Well, good luck with that, because you need 36 states to say, okay, we're going to give up power.
Right. Because not going to happen.
Americans give up power so easily. We're just we're good about that.
We're so sweet that way. Yeah,
we are. We just love, for the betterment of the country, we're willing to do this.
Not going to happen.
No, all right. It's not.
Probably.
Okay. Well, vive la France, vive la liberté.
Indeed. Scott.
I'm not sure who I'd vote for in that. And frankly, of those candidates, probably the centrist, the conservative centrist party. No, just because they're anti-Canaanites.
No,
they just are.
They're sort of mildly pro-dog. I mean,
yeah, it's they have the token dog, but we all know what they're we all know what they're signaling there.
Yeah, we know. Yeah, we know. It's like it's true. It's like it's about the cats. It's true.
So anyway, okay.
Dogs still need a voice in France.
They do.
And there's a lot of Frenchmen have ferrets, so there probably needs to be a ferret liberation front, FLF, La Front de Libération.
I would say we have enough ferrets in our politics in the United States, but we're leaving it at that. Ted, you asked quick, and I will answer quickly. Go to gocomics.com/Scott Stantis or gocomics.com/Prickly City. You can see my work if you go to the opinion section of the Chicago Tribune. I also run at Dallas News because I draw for the Dallas Morning News. In addition, Smirkonish, the commentator who's on CNN, he also has his own newsletter that reaches almost 200,000 people. He has a radio show on Sirius XM. He's now running Scott Stantis cartoons, so now you can take him seriously. But his newsletter is free, so you may want to sign up for that. In addition, and finally, Center Clip, a app you really should have on your phone. You can listen. Ted just posted one today, which about D-Day and about the obligation and the, frankly, the honor we owe to the Russians and the former Soviet Union, now Russia, for their part in World War II. There are many podcasts, 30 seconds, no longer than 5 minutes. They're really, I think they're fantastic. So Ted, Where can we see things all rolling?
Well, first of all, I must urge, I'm not going to say anything at all today, except please buy my book, 2024 Revisited. It's my updated graphic novel. 24 years ago, I wrote this parody of Orwell's 1984, and it follows the story pretty faithfully, and it predicts what the world would be like in 2024, 24 years in the future, which is now. So the book is now out, and now it's in full color, which is what I always wanted. It always annoyed me that it was in black and white, but it's very pretty. It's available only on Amazon. So go there, please, and buy it.
Is there additional material? Have you added stuff to it?
Other than the color? It's annotated.
Okay, great.
Because there was stuff that probably, you would not otherwise understand now. So
I'll pull it off my old copy and pull it off my shelf and give it a read, and then I'll order the new one.
Okay, thank you, Scott. That'll be one sale. Woohoo!
All right. And also, I'm going to throw out, to Ted's not, but also the final countdown on Sputnik Radio. You can watch it on Rumble. It's a superb radio show. It really does talk about issues, goes very deep into issues that nobody else is talking about, and they certainly talk about them in a profound and interesting way. So the final countdown, check it out. There you go, Ted. So until next time.
Indeed. Thanks everyone for listening. Thanks for the plug, Scott. And we'll see you all next week, unless something huge happens between now and then.
Au revoir.
Take care and vive la France.
Vive la liberté.